Hello, and welcome to Wilaker, a Journeyers podcast. I'm Will Abels, and this is my story. I'm going back on the road, and boy, am I excited to share these dates with you. And if you are like, Will, where do I find tickets? Guess what? Right now, you can go to the link in my bio on my Instagram. It'll take you to a link tree that has all of my dates, times, and tickets listed. That's right, he's headlining, he's featured, and most importantly, he's getting organized. All right, on Thursday, February 12th, I will be making my headlining debut in the Cellar at the DC Comedy Loft, so please come check that out. Then I'm sticking around for the weekend to feature for one of the best in the business right now, Catherine Blandford. That'll be February 13th and February 14th. So have your Galentines, have your Palentines, or just your good old-fashioned Valentine's Day or weekend with us. Then on Sunday, I head back to the Cellar Door in Frederick, Maryland to feature for Umar Khan. That's Sunday, February 15th. And then on Thursday, February 19th, for one night only, I am in my hometown of Hagerstown, Maryland, headlining at the Barrel Bodega. So please come on down. Have some fun with us. Then I go back to Nashville for a few showcases, and then in March, I head back on the road in a very serious way. On Friday, March 13th, Friday the 13th, I will be in Birmingham, Alabama, and then on March 14th, I'll be at Comedy on Canal in Orange Beach, Alabama. Then I'm heading back to Club 27 in Pensacola on March 15th. Then I go back for a couple of days, and then I'm heading out west. From March 19th to March 21st, I will be featuring for one of my best buds in the business, Ben Roy, at Comic Sense in Boulder, Colorado. Then I'm going to be sticking around Denver for a few days, and then I head out even further west to Boise, Idaho for the Tree Fort Music Festival. I'll be part of Comedy Fort. It's a fantastic lineup. If you're out that way, do not miss it. Then I'm going to go down to the Southwest to, once again, feature for my best bud, Ben Roy, at Laughs Tucson. That's April 3rd and April 4th. Then I'm heading to Santa Fe, New Mexico for the very first time to headline on April 5th. Then I'm making my way to Dallas for a little fun. On Thursday, April 9th, I'll be featuring for Cliff Cash. And then I'm sticking around to headline myself at Dallas Comedy Club on April 12th. That's right, I'll be there all weekend. First with Cliff, and then for myself. Then I'm heading back to Nashville for the Nashville Comedy Festival. I'll be on panel for Ask a Fuckboy on April 17th. That's right, dreams do come true. Then I head up to Louisville, Kentucky on April 18th for feature at Planet of the Tapes. Then I come back for one of the best shows in the country, the Comedy Night at Rosemary and Beauty Queen in 5 Points in East Nashville, in Nashville, Tennessee on April 19th. And then I get to breathe for a day. Just kidding. Then I go to Chicago, and I'm featuring at Zany's for my best bud. These are all my best buds, Adam Mamawala, on April 21st. And then on April 23rd, I head up to Minneapolis, Minnesota, for the very first time to headline at the Comedy Corner Underground, one of the best clubs in the country. I can't wait for that. And finally, because I have it, and because you're here on Sunday, May 17th, I am finally heading back to Empire Comedy Club in Portland, Maine, and this is my first time headlining there since 2018. So you know what? Tickets are on sale now. Early bird, $10. Day of, $3 million. So get those tickets now. All right. Enjoy Chapter 4.
Left home, gone coast to coast in a hybrid car with a bag of clothes. Back on the wagon, back on the road. Would you have my back when I'm all alone? On a wing and a prayer, all out of favors. Hope to get $1 and a smile at a stranger. As the story is told and the plot unfolds, we laugh not to cry, but it's not a joke. No, it's not a joke. It's not a joke.
Kenny Sharp, once again, with the tunes. I talked to Kenny the other day. He might actually turn that into a full song. Wouldn't that be just the most Will Abels bullshit if the intro song becomes a #1 hit and then I can't afford the rights to the song and then I have to change my intro song and then I'm constantly that guy. We're like, oh, it was actually my intro. Like, I knew Kenny back before. Such a good song. And I appreciate him doing it. And he crushed it on Kelly Clarkson, in case you missed it. Go back and check that video. Kenny Sharp, follow him, listen to him, love him as I do. Welcome to Chapter 4 of Wilaker. We're here. We've done it. You know, and if you went through the first few chapters and the prologues and the rants and all that, you know, this was my slow build up to the fun part. Because right now we are on day one, May 27th, 2025. What a roller coaster to get there. And I'm glad that I'm recording today because yesterday I've been sort of putting this together for a while, but now it's officially happening and I'm going on the road for basically 2 months. But because of my experiences last year, I am not as stressed about it going into it this year. I understand what I have to do, how it's going to work. I'm already able to cut corners with housing because a lot of the places that I'm performing in provide housing. I'm not performing in like major cities, besides Denver, which is always going to be expensive, but that's one that I stay with a friend who will be in a later episode, stay with their family. But yeah, so I'm going back on the road. I'm really excited about it. Tonight I'm headlining in DC and just praying that they pay me for August and September and tonight and this weekend. And then that money gets to go towards this trip. It's fun doing comedy and knowing that I'm the last one paid, always. But all I had to do was just, if I had just known 5 years ago, if I just started twerking on my phone, I could be selling out arenas. Or if I just had no opinions on anything ever, I could be selling out Bridgestone. It's incredible. Look, I understand a lot of people jump into comedy because they want to escape from their day-to-day, but to have some of these platforms and to just be completely silent, even if it's just like your point of view as, I don't know, it's frustrating, but it doesn't matter because we're here with my 10.3 thousand followers. And for those of you that think that means, I realized I had a friend that was like, oh my God, you gained 3,000 more followers since you got to 10,000? No, I got 300 more followers since I got to 10,000. 10.3, meaning 10,300. Someone was like, 13, that'd be 1,300. Anyway, I digress. Welcome to Chapter 4 of Wilaker. It's day one of the Experience Files tour. Anxiety's through the roof. Relapse is happening, but I need to paint this picture a little bit better. So, there were a couple of days where I was drinking like my old days where I'm just waking up drinking. That's all I'm doing all day, staying just sober enough to do a show. And even then it's am I sober enough to even do this show? But that's not really happening as much. It happened a couple of days because the stress just overwhelmed. I have learned since that when I'm overwhelmingly stressed, I drink more. And right now I'm just as stressed as I was back then. But I'm sober. So instead, it's just probably, burning a hole in my stomach and instead of alleviating any actual anxiety. But I was able to break a couple of benders before they began, and I genuinely am not drinking how I used to. So I was kind of approaching drinking this time around as oh, it's different than how it used to be. And I really did believe that for a while. And most of the next 4 weeks of touring on the Experience Files tour, I could just stop when I wanted to stop. It was very different, and it really didn't snowball again until I got back to Nashville, which I think that's telling of my relationship to Nashville, but also that's just the culture here. So I think it, and I kind of, we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead, but I want to paint this picture in that I am not just waking up, drinking, driving halfway across the country, doing a show, fighting a cop, and then going to bed. That's not what's happening. There's a lot of control, and that is why this trip was special to me, because I felt like there was this genuine change happening, and there was this weird part of me that was so excited to drink again because I love drinking. That's part of the addiction is, yes, I do like the taste of an IPA. I do like to try a whiskey out or a mezcal or something, but if you love a bowl of pasta and you have 9 bowls of pasta, you have a problem, right? That's sort of what my drinking's like, where it's yeah, sure, I love an IPA, but who's ripping shots of well whiskey with an IPA and be no, I just like the taste of an IPA. But it's not like that quite yet. So wake up, day of, I only have a 2.5, maybe 3 hour trip ahead of me. I realized that if I was going to try and do day one on May 28th and have my first show in Omaha, I would have to get up at like 3 a.m. and start driving. It was just not realistic. And because everyone was so supportive and kind of got me back to square one financially, I was able to get a super cheap hotel in Whittington, Illinois. It's about an hour, I believe it's like an hour northwest of Evansville, which has a very, very, very tiny comedy scene, which is why that was relevant. And just, take my time during the day, get the car packed, get up there, get settled, have my first night, and then get up and get going to Omaha. And, any type of travel is stressful. Packing your car for a month is just insanity. Like, there were so many things that I had to debate about whether it was worth buying or not. Like a generator, I was like convinced I needed a generator. I really didn't. I might still get one now after, Nashville losing power for 2 weeks, but that has nothing to do with this trip. A rack to put my stuff on the roof. And then I was stressed, like, well, if it's on the roof, then I'm going to have to take it down every time I park and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have enough. I think if there was 2 of us, I would do something like that. But because it was just me, I was like, all right, I think I can make this work. And once I got to Bozeman, I would be picking up Adam Mamawala. And so I had to like make sure, like, okay, do I have room for his stuff, my stuff, and then he can sit in the front seat. So I'm just kind of testing out how to pack my car, and and I'm sleeping in it. Not every night, but there's some nights where I'm camping. There's some nights where I'm just crashing in a Walmart parking lot. And so I have a mattress. I have this like little roll up mattress. And so I like kind of test the car out, figure out what works best. I'm like 99% sure I can fit all of Adam's stuff and my stuff in the car without getting a car rack. I thought I was going to have to get like a jug, like one of those water coolers. And then I had a spout for that. I never actually needed that, but maybe in the future, maybe this trip that I have coming up, I'll do that. So all these things that I thought I needed, I ended up not needing, saved a little money. Food-wise, I was just going to kind of pick up food as I was going, which I'm still not, jury's not out. Jury's not, I don't know what that phrase is, but I basically got like a bunch of tinned salmon and like ramen noodles and canned, green beans and stuff like that. And I just kind of had that as backup. And then I thought, all right, well, if I'm going to cook for myself, I'll pick stuff up day of from a grocery store because I don't need to carry this around the whole time. I got a nice loaf of sourdough bread. That got me going for a while. I had a jar of peanut butter. A lot of sunflower seeds, a 12-pack of Topo Chico. And, I had a box of jackets I packed. I opened it one time to grab a jacket once. Like, I really didn't know how to pack. I didn't know what I was doing. Anyway, the car gets packed, and I decided I was going to go, just do one last thing for myself. And I went down to Cinco de Mayo and I got shrimp tacos. I went back, said bye to my cat. He didn't give a shit. And I took off. And I'll tell you, there was always going to be some level of anxiety this whole trip because you're just traveling. You're traveling, and that's just how that is. As simple as like I get there, the Airbnb has burned to the ground, and I have no idea where to stay. Things like that just happen. Hopefully not that, but things like that happen. And so there's always going to be some level of anxiety. And then on top of that, there was the financial part where I go, all right, I run out of money on like day 7, but hopefully I get paid by this show, and this show. And then also I had the show structured so that I headlined at basically the end of each week, which at the minimum should be an extra couple $100. And that will get me through to the next week or whatever. A lot of things play out that just does not happen that way, but I don't know that yet. And there's a part of me that's excited to just see how this adventure goes. And it was very poorly planned in that regard. That's another reason I'm sort of excited again to get back on the road, because all of my failures last year will lead to my successes this year, and they have done that so far. And so I get in the road, and as soon as I get out of Nashville, I feel great. Like, yes, there's underlying anxiety that whole time. Yeah, I'm still processing what this, what drinking looks like, but I'm so excited that I just get a month to just be fully invested in comedy again. And, I've done that in spurts since 2019, but like things have just not gotten settled since 2020. And I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I feel like I get a little heat going, it goes away. Most of the time it's personal reasons. The industry has taken a really shitty turn, and like, I don't know, there's too much comedy out there now, and it's not good. I mean, it's crowd work, it's clips, it's and I'm not saying this against any particular comics, but you can be pretty bad at comedy and be a successful comedian these days. And so, like, I was excited to just go out and be invested in comedy and just go all in. And that's usually when I get up to my best. I start writing again. I stumble upon some fun stuff. I'm excited. And I'm also excited to get out of Nashville. It's a great town. It's a lot of fun, but it will wear you down. And, what's funny about sobriety is because I was going to the meetings and stuff, and I had just stopped, obviously, like, at that point I was drinking again, but I had just stopped going to these meetings, and I was sort of phasing myself out of them anyway. Like, the little things were happening that I was like, all right, I'm so sick of this. And again, I am not against AA. I think if you are contemplating sobriety, I do think going and starting with AA is the best thing you can do for yourself, because it gives you the foundations to get sober in the first place. And it does work. It works for a lot of people. It has worked for 100 years, but there are just things about it that it didn't work for me, and that's okay. There's other things I've found that do help work for me, like drinking 17 Topo Chicos a day. But anyway, I stopped going to the meetings, and and I'm drinking again. And so about the month leading up to going on the road, I would see the most random people from my meetings at like the most random times. Like I was like sitting at a bar having a good time, and then I like look over my shoulder and there was someone there about to have a meeting, and he's drinking a club soda, and I was like, oh God. And I like didn't touch my beer for like, until he left, which was like 20 minutes later or something. I walked into another bar and found out one of them was like a bartender there, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to that bar anymore. And so, there are these little signs that kind of pop up in their own way, being like, do you really want to be doing this? And that's another thing I like about the meetings, is all of a sudden you have this kind of secret club that is around to kind of keep you honest. I will also say, when you have addiction issues, no one is going to stop you. If you don't want to be stopped, you're not going to be stopped. And that's sort of where I was at with my drinking at the time. And, a lot of things that help me now is like this podcast help, keeping myself honest and transparent and talking to you all. It does help me stay sober, and I don't have cravings the way I used to. Like I'm like I said, I'm extremely stressed, but I haven't thought like, oh, what would help me right now? A beer or a shot of whiskey. And it's not like I don't want that from time to time, but it just doesn't hit me the way it used to. Like a long walk kind of helps me out. But anyway, so I've taken off from Nashville. I'm heading up to Whittington, Illinois, and it's a great drive up. And I get to Rend Lake. Not much happens on the drive up there, honestly. And I'm like, I got to be focused. I got to budget this money. I got to, be a responsible adult. And I get to my hotel, and I'm like, I'm not going to be that responsible of an adult. So I get to the hotel. The hotel is super tiny. It's under construction, right up my alley. It's off of like, it's not off a main road. It's just like, it just exists. It's next to a gas station. And there are some people like living there. And this was a great way to start the whole tour, because I pull in, super cheap hotel. I put my credit card down. It goes through shockingly. And then I drop my stuff off. And as I'm unpacking, this older guy who lives in the hotel, he starts chatting to me a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I've lived here for about a year now or something like that. And he's like, I was like, oh, well, like, how was your weekend? And he goes, oh, it was good. I went and I saw my daughter, and I'm retired, and she's one of those creatives. She's one of those artists. And I told her, well, you're never going to make any money, but as long as you're happy, I'll support you. And so I was just meeting with her and sending her some money and that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, you're not wrong. old man. You're not wrong. And I'm excited to come be your neighbor in a couple of years in that old hotel. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, you got to be responsible. You got to eat. So I eat a can of tinned salmon. Learn in that moment that I love tinned salmon. Uh, whatever. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, I got to do something. It's my first night. I'm excited to be out of the city. The drive around Rend Lake was beautiful, and it's like for the first few days, I wasn't like sobbing, but I just found these moments of beauty in nature and being out there. And, 1 year later, holy shit, are we fucked right now? And there's so much to consume on our phones, and that just negative doesn't even, break the surface of how awful and how evil some people are and what they've been doing and all that. So, there were these moments of just like being out on the road by yourself in the car, and you just see this beautiful scenery around you. And it's the only calm you can genuinely feel, in my opinion, is like, they always say, oh, I touch grass, whatever. Yeah, go out in nature. Literally just turn off your phone and sit and listen to the birds and the bugs and the crinkle of the leaves and all that. So I'm driving around Rend Lake. It's beautiful. I got my country playlist going. And don't worry, I'm not listening to fucking Morgan Wallen. Like, it's like Childers and Charlie Crockett and Sturgill and Coulter Wall, Margot Price, and that kind of expands a bit. But it's a beautiful drive around the lake, and I go back, meet this guy, drop my stuff off. And so I type in nearby bar, and there's like a winery, which I don't think is the best idea for me. And there's a bar called the Barn Bar. And I see it, and I'm like, that bar is calling my name. I got to go there. And it's like a half mile away. It's not far at all. So I get down there, and I notice that my phone has no service at this bar. Online, it had a picture of like live music. It's a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting to see live music, but man, what a treat that would have been. And I walk into this place, and it is like, Nashville doesn't have a dive bar anymore, really. I mean, I don't know if it's going to upset anyone, and it's not meant to, but Nashville doesn't have like a genuine dive bar with like a $2 Coors Light, that kind of thing. I mean, Robert's Western World tries, but that's not a dive bar. That's on Broadway. But I walk in, it's like $2.75 for a Coors Light, happy hours like $2 for a Miller Lite, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, daddy is home. And it's cash only. So I pull out a little bit of cash, and I was like, all right, when I'm out of this cash, I'll go home. And I don't need to meet anybody. I just wanted to sit and enjoy this bar for what it was. I'm on the road again. I knew tomorrow was going to be a long drive. I have to do comedy. I have to do the whole thing. And there's a guy next to me. To my right, there's a couple of those like slot machine things. A couple people are sitting there. And then there are just like these two old regulars having an argument to my left, and then the bartender. And the bartender is very nice. And, we start chatting it up a little bit. And she mentions that her sister or her cousin, I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head, has just started doing stand-up in Evansville. And I know exactly what Mike she was talking about. Because when I was prepping for the Pride of Hagerstown for my recording, I was going anywhere that they would give me an hour. And so I went up to Evansville at some point, and I did an hour or maybe 40 minutes, but I did that in this like Irish bar, on like the upstairs of this Irish bar. And it's not a private floor. It overlooks the first floor. So the whole time you can just hear people downstairs having a good time. And there's so many shows like that where it's just upstairs chasing your dream, downstairs people just enjoying their life. And so she tells me her cousin's trying it out, and I was like, oh, I know that place. In my head, I'm like, oh, I should have set up a show there. Blah, blah, blah. Start chatting to her. The guy next to me, I'm going to see how far I can go before I mention that I'm doing stand-up. And I do that with my Uber passengers because, I don't know, some people I just don't think deserve joy. And so if I think they're a bad person, I won't tell them about my hopes and dreams. I'm talking to this guy for a while, and he's really interesting. And, he flies planes, and it's part of his job. And we're, talking about the local area and some of the farms that are around. And he makes a ton of money. I forget what he does. I know I'm mixing him up with a conversation I had with another guy from Alaska, but I do know he goes out west, and I believe he worked with power lines, because he had some really cool stories. Like, one thing that was really funny that stuck out to me was we were talking about, when you enjoy a beautiful moment, if you don't document it, did it really happen? Kind of a tree falls in the forest situation. And he was telling me that this one time they're out west. They were going, they might have even been in Canada, honestly. But he was telling me that they were going over this mountain range or over this hill. And I think it was a hill, but he goes over it, and there's just this, there's thousands of caribou, right? And he was like, it was just this beautiful, there's snow everywhere and this beautiful caribou. And he's like, and I couldn't get my phone out in time to take a picture. And yeah, it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, no one's going to believe me, right? And there's so much of that in life that it's so sad that everything has to be put online immediately or it didn't happen. And I feel that way too. I'm not knocking anybody, but we're just kind of swapping stories and sharing stories, and the bartender's with us. Now, these old guys in the corner, they're arguing over a woman. And what I gathered is that this one old guy was with this woman that didn't treat him right. And he was making all these excuses for her. And the two of them, they must have known each other for 1,000 years. I'm pretty sure these two were non-playable characters, and they've just been in that bar since the dawn of time. And the one guy is arguing with his friend about this woman being like, she don't treat you right. You deserve better than this. And he's like, don't you ever talk about it. You don't understand her. So this is the kind of fight they're having. I am like, I do not want to get involved in this fight. A part of me wants to so bad, but I was like, this is not for me. And the bartender's cracking up, and she's just like, this is what they do every day. And so we're hanging out, chatting it up. Eventually it comes out that I do comedy, and we start talking about the tour, and I tell them I'm from Nashville, and they're like, you're a long way from Nashville. And I'm like, well, I'm going to Omaha. And they're like, you're a long way from Omaha. They're like, who put your tour together? And I was like, I did. And at some point, I had probably ended up staying there for like 4 or 5 hours, I think, maybe 4 hours. But at some point, these old guys, they come to a resolution, they stand up, they hug each other, and they're just talking about how much they love each other. That's just good old-fashioned men being men, and that's how they should resolve issues. If two men just sat down at a bar and talked it out for a couple of hours over a couple of beers, probably don't remember the conversation the next day, but but they part ways holding each other. After holding each other, I think more we would solve more problems that way. But anyway, they eventually do that and they leave, and it was a really special moment to kind of watch. And if you're an incel listening to this, go find a friend and talk to them about your woman problems, because I promise you're going to leave a little bit better of a person. Get out of that basement. Stop listening to Ben Shapiro or Andrew Tate or whatever, or Joe Rogan or whatever psychopath you're listening to, and go out, find a friend, sit at the bar, and do that every night for the next 50 years, and you're going to come out a better person. So now it's just down to me. There's this one guy over the slots. He's long gone. He's like in the slot. He's just doing the slot machine things or whatever those are. And it's just me and this guy and the bartender. And we're just chatting it up, having a great time. And I'm sitting there like, this is what I'm talking about. I did connect my phone to the Wi-Fi just in case any conversations, like anything I needed, popped up, just to be safe, right? In case they turn on me and they kidnap me and then skin me alive and this is the end of my trip, or not, maybe the beginning of my trip. I don't know. It depends on the perspective, I guess. But we're just having a great time chatting. And that's when one of them, I can't remember what the game is called, but it is a little basketball hoop, like about the size of an espresso cup. And there's a little tin underneath of it. And if you can get a quarter into it, if you can shoot a quarter into it, you get a free shot. And she's telling me about it. She's like, well, you have to do it. They also have these like mixed drinks in the back, these like mixed shots in the back, these like specialty shots. So we take a couple of those. Me and this guy are going back and forth buying each other around because it's $5 for 2 beers. So we're having a good time. I'm sticking to, I think I was drinking Coors Light at the time. It's great. I think there was an even cheaper one. I think it was Busch Light. I think I went with a Busch at some point. But we're going back and forth, getting around, swapping stories, having a good time. Bartender's involved. She's not stressed out anymore because the two old guys have stopped fighting. And I start shooting into this basket, right? And I was like, I'm going to fuck. And she's like, it's no one, like, she's like, very rarely do people ever hit it. Now, some of you may know this, some of you may not. But there was a point in my life where I was a beer pong champion. It was my sophomore year in college, was the first semester, I believe. And me and my roommate, Blaze Davis, the man who got me into comedy, are teamed up for the first ever Juan Invitational beer pong championship. The Juan in question, my friend Greg Epstein, has changed history by claiming that that was not the first one, because he won the second one. He won the second championship. And so for his own timeline, he claims he won the first one. You can't rewrite history, Mr. 1984 Big Brother. Okay, Blaze and I won the very first one. We were in the basement of the soccer house in Alston. Anyway, Blaze and I are making a great run in this tournament. And then we go up against the favorites to win it, Johnny Mullen and Dumont. What is Dumont's real name? Full name? Derek Dumont. Yeah, I don't know. There's some people that I generally only know them by their nicknames or last names or whatever. But it's Johnny Mullen and Derek Dumont against Blaze Davis and Will Abels. Our team name is Lamb and Chips, because we're just silly boys. We're both wearing bandanas and matching hats, white shirts. We got the whole thing going. And then we are getting crushed. All right, we got 6 cups to go. They got like 2, and I've given up. I was like, we lost to Johnny Mullen and Derek Dumont. And I look at Blaze and I go, well, we had a good run. And Blaze looks at me and he goes, McLovin, what if this is the comeback? Never give up. And those wise words I got at 19 years old, I've carried with me for my life. And then Blaze and I go on this 6-cup run and we send it to overtime. And then we beat Johnny and Derek. And then we just clear house. Just destroy. No one was even close to us after that. And we won the first Juan Invitational Beer Pong Championship. So I got that up my sleeve, right? And so this bartender in Whittington, Illinois, at the Barn Bar, is like, people very rarely actually get this quarter in. So I'm sitting there at the bar just throwing these quarters. I'm not even getting close. I'm getting somewhat close, but I'm not getting even close. And then I'm like, you know what? Let's play to win. So I stand up and I start kind of moving around a bit. I'm better when I move to shoot. I don't know. I'm just like a real Larry Bird, honestly. You know, it's tough to just be one of the greats. And anyway, so I start moving around and shooting. The guy's just like, you're not going to hit this, are you? And the bartender's laughing and she's like, I'm just waiting to hear that ding. And so she goes to walk away and I find my spot. I can feel that this is the spot. Launch the quarter in the air and then she just hears the dink as it goes in. I scream, he screams. She's like, oh my God, did you hit it? And I missed it. And I kept shooting for a while. I don't remember if I hit a second one or not, but, you know, one of those great moments of just 3 strangers. They probably knew each other, but, you know, just having a good time. And I wasn't there much longer after that. The guy did keep laughing. He was like, so you're not going to tell a single joke tonight, are you? And I was like, no, I have stories. Like, I'll tell you some stories if you want, but that's all I got. And, you know, we didn't talk politics. We didn't talk religion. We didn't talk about, you know, God, whatever's happening in the news that time. We just had a great time sharing our stories and having a few beers. And that is something that I at the time I was like convinced that I couldn't enjoy life without alcohol, you know, and that was one of those moments that was not a good case against it, you know, where you're just having a bunch of beers, you know, they're light beers. So you're not like blacking out. And we had a few shots in there, but I'm there for like 5 hours. It's all very spread out. I've eaten a couple times, and we just had a great time, you know, and I felt so not alive. I don't want to say like I felt alive, but I just immediately was like, this trip, no matter how it goes, is good. And if it gets stressful, if it gets dark, ultimately this is going to be a good trip. And thankfully I was right. But it was just a great night to kick it off because that's what I wanted. Yes, the comedy mattered. It was a comedy tour, but I wanted to reconnect with people again. And I have learned, thankfully, less than a year out, I still have those kinds of experiences when I'm on the road now, and I don't need alcohol to do it. I just need to kind of get the chatting going. But in the moment, I felt like that's what I was, like I said, is one of the reasons I sort of got back to drinking is I was very lonely. And sure, I would still go hang out at some of my favorite bars, see some of my favorite bartenders, but it's not the same. You see that camaraderie of like everyone goes over, they do a shot, and you got to sit there and you got to contemplate if you're going to just leave or not, And so I missed all that. And this sort of brought me back to it, and it was a great way to kick off night one. And so then I go back to my hotel, and it's just, I'm so happy. It was so much fun. And I made a resolution, though, that was like, even if you have fun at night, you have to be productive every day. And so I get up, set my alarm, feel the drinks a little bit in the morning. But then I edited a video and got it online and was so pumped. Was like, this could be the trip. It could be productive. It can be like fun at night, productive in the morning, crushing comedy in the evening, That did not last long. I'll admit that. That did not last long. I hate editing videos. I hate posting to social media. It is a necessary evil. I understand that, but I hate it. But I did it the first day, and I'm so pumped. I'm like, look at this. You're going to crush this. This did not last more than a few days. So I pack up the car again. I say goodbye to my new friend, my neighbor. He's up and he's moving around. Say bye to him. Say bye to the front desk. And I don't remember what I did for breakfast. But now I get to haul ass to Omaha, and I have my first show. And that's where we'll pick up on Chapter 5, is the first show at Beach House in Omaha, Nebraska. It's my first time performing in Nebraska. And I'm doing a indie room to kick it off. And yeah, so that was night one. I find out later, the Barn Bar is not just some bar. They got like 20,000 followers on TikTok. Like they have more followers on TikTok than I do. And it's because they do these, like, they just have fun. They have these goofy shots, and they have this great game, and they have a good group of regulars, and they just know how to run social media. And so we ended up talking about that the night before, and I actually did take some tips from them and all that kind of stuff of just making posts and everything. But it really was the perfect first night for me, because it was just the human experience. Like, I love Anthony Bourdain, and I could never do what he does because I'm allergic to whitefish, so I can't just eat anything, and I can't drink anymore, so I can't enjoy wine and all that kind of stuff. Maybe one day, but I highly doubt that, and that is not something I'm going to explore anytime soon. But the thing I love about Anthony Bourdain is just the human experience that he brings out. The one thing that connects all of us is just being human, and we are so far from that right now. I mean, even if what bothers me the most, besides the obvious, people supporting ICE agents. I'm like, where is your human element to this? Because these ICE agents have lost their humanity. They're monsters, right? And I can understand that was somebody's kid at some point. But God, whatever dark path they went on, they have lost that, And so when you support these guys, you're also taking out the human element of who they're ripping from their homes. I mean, we're so lost, But then you have a moment like I did at the Barn Bar where you talk to a couple of strangers, you watch two old guys hash out a fight about a woman and then come together at the end. And these very small moments are what make life worth living. And it really was such a great night. And I don't know. It's nice. It was just nice. It was a great moment for me, and it set the right tone for what the rest of the trip would become. Okay, so that was Chapter 4, and Chapter 5 picks up in Omaha, Nebraska, where I am doing some stand-up. Once again, The intro song is by Kenny Sharp. If you are ever traveling through Rend Lake, yeah, fantastic place to visit. And the Barn Bar in Whittington, Illinois. Check it out. Don't miss it. And then we'll pick up on Chapter 5 at the beach house in Omaha. All right. Take us away, Kenny.
Left home, gone coast to coast in a hybrid car with a bag of clothes. Back on the wagon, back on the road. Would you have my back when I'm all alone? On a wing and a prayer, all out of favors. Hope to get $1 and a smile out of stranger. As the story is told and the plot unfolds, we laugh not to cry, but it's not a joke. No, it's not a joke. It's not a joke.